BookTube.
Hello. You go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so it's week 2 of FFS.
February Fantasy Stories.
And you guys going to do it. I was going to mess it up and switch them. But February Fantasy Stories is week 2. So how did we go? How did week 1 go for you?
It went well for me. Yeah. I read some stories, not all good. What I've noticed is, all right, my number one, all-time number one genre is science fiction. And science fiction short stories are amazing. Like, I actually prefer them very, very much to fantasy short stories. But that doesn't mean there aren't some real gems out there, and there are. And I've read a couple of them. I read a couple of them last week, actually, and I'm going to go over those a little bit. So what about you?
I got 3 stories out of the way for last week. I had a kind of a traumatic weekend before that, and my drive to read serious literature kind of went by the wayside. So I ended up with 3 short stories that I liked 33.33333% of. No, 66.6666666% of, because I didn't like one of them.
Okay.
I was not a fan.
Okay.
But I was actually rather surprised, because I'm not a big fan of fantasy short stories. I'm like him. I love the science fiction short stories. They're engaging. They get my mind working. For some reason, my mind just wanders all over the place when I'm reading fantasy short stories. At least classic fantasy short stories. The newer things, I'm here for. For some reason, the classic fantasy just doesn't do it for me.
Yeah, I am a bigger fan of what I read of anything from Robert E. Howard's amazing. Mm-hmm. Everything the guy writes is readable and fun.
That's the author of Conan, if you're wondering.
And Solomon Kane.
Don't know what he wrote.
No, Solomon Kane is the character.
Robert E. Howard wrote Solomon Kane?
Yeah, before he wrote Conan.
I had no idea who Solomon Kane is.
So the first story I read was awful. It was bad. It was The Frost King or The Power of Love by Louisa May Alcott. And I read it in this book right here.
That's a heck of a title.
Right here. Come to find out, she wrote this when she was 16 years old, and it should have stayed buried in the box that it was originally buried in. It was awful. Sure, she was 16. You can forgive her that, but I can't forgive the Vandermeers for putting this story in their book. It was so bad. It has no place in any collections going forward. It was bad. The second...
You think it was just there because it was Louisa May Alcott?
Yes. Yeah.
Makes sense.
The second thing I read was, I tried reading and barely got through it. It was The Princess Steel by W.E.B. Du Bois. Or Du Bois. I've heard it pronounced both ways. I've heard it pronounced Dubois too, so who knows?
I heard it pronounced Dubois all through high school.
Yeah, well.
So
I've heard all 3.
I'd have to hear him pronounce it.
I know it's a French name, but... And that book, and that story was another one that they found locked away in a box somewhere. And they put it in this book. And there's another story that does not belong in any collections. It's bad. Don't unearth things that shouldn't be unearthed. Leave them dead.
What's wrong? What was wrong with it? Was it just boring? Or?
It was boring. It was it sounded, the writing was completely pretentious. I can see why it was never published.
Okay.
Just not good. But I did read, I read a couple of others that didn't stick with me too much, that were fine. And then I read The Fullness of Life by Edith Wharton, and that was an amazing short story. That was a great short story. Actually pretty short too, 12, 14 pages, something like that. And it came out of the same book. This book right here. And it is a story that has been in other collections and things like that. And I say read it. It is great. Edith Wharton is one of the best American writers in history. So the Fullness of Life, sure, it's fantasy, but at the same time, it hits on a lot of really heavy subjects that I say read about. It's great.
I'm too scared to read it.
Yeah.
Well. Edith Wharton traumatized me.
Yeah, she didn't like what's the name of the book?
Ethan Frome.
Ethan Frome, and I loved Ethan Frome.
And didn't like is it don't cut it.
Yeah, I know. So what did you read?
So I read, like I said, I read 3. I read The Drowned Giant by J.G. Ballard, and I mentioned this in one of the lives we did. I didn't realize until I started reading the story that's there was a short episode, TV episode made of that story on Death, Love, and Robots. It's on the 2nd season, I think, and it is terribly faithful to the story. I'm talking there was a voiceover and everything. The one interesting thing about that story, there is absolutely no dialogue. It is 100% description. 99.9% description. I think one person says a sentence.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's almost entirely
sounds
dialogue.
like some Lovecraft stuff that he. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of upsetting. It's the tale of a giant that washes up on shore, and it's how regular people treat the corpse of this giant, and it's kind of upsetting because it's thoroughly believable.
Yeah.
So the second story I read was The Last Dragon in the World by.
It's probably Tuva.
I think it's Tuva Janssen.
Oh, is it Janssen? Okay.
That's an S.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it's Tuva Janssen. It's a guess, but I think it's Tuva Janssen. This one I didn't like much because I was a little confused. I wasn't sure what was happening. I think the main character was a troll, but I could be wrong. It never specifies.
But does it really make a difference?
It kind of does.
Okay.
Simply because there's culture there that you kind of have to wonder about, but I don't know, it was kind of disjointed and it didn't make a whole lot of sense, and the fantasy element of that was sort of off on the side. It wasn't really. It didn't come together for me.
I got you.
I'll just put it that way.
Okay.
And the last one I read was actually my favorite of the lot, and it was Transformation by Mary Shelley.
I didn't get to read it. I really wanted to, but I had so much reading to do, other things to read on the side that I just couldn't.
It's sort of the story of a selfish man and an evil dwarf. It was really, really, really good. I enjoyed that one immensely. I had such a good time with it. You would enjoy it too.
Yeah, I know. I need to read it.
It's very, very good.
Is it dark? Could I put it in for dark fantasy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty dark.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, and what I've read so far. Now, you know what? I'm not going to say what I've read so far. We're going to do that in the next video that we do for FFS.
Yeah, this is like 2 or 3 days.
We're a little behind on videos, but
into
we had a rough week last week, and
yeah. This is like 2 or 3 days into the second week.
Yeah.
Because we're the worst hosts ever.
Yeah. We are.
But
we are going to do videos every 3 or 4 days here coming up. Mm-hmm. This week starting now. And for
week 2 is Sword and Sorcery.
Sword and Sorcery, which was probably what I was looking forward to more than any other.
Not me.
Yeah, I know.
I'm looking forward to week 4 so bad.
Yeah, I'm not.
I'm losing my mind.
Well, I do look forward to it because I'm reading classics. I'm not reading that new urban fantasy. I don't like it.
It's so boring.
No, it isn't. I
yes,
don't
it
like
is.
it. I'm reading books from Conan the Cimmerian Barbarian, all Robert E. Howard stories. These are the complete Weird Tales omnibus. So anything that came in Weird Tales that Robert E. Howard put out for Conan or Solomon Kane or
it's the ugliest cover.
Cull came out.
Cull the Conqueror.
Yeah, they're in here. So I'm excited about this. I've read a couple of stories in this already, and they are great. Like
it's a naked woman on the cover.
Of course, they're like it's Conan. I mean, is that not one of the ugliest covers you've ever seen? I'm sure it has horrible. I'm sure it has its fans. but I'm not one of them. I think this cover is horrible. This might be the first. Oh yeah, this is actually from the first Cole story in the book. The first story in the book.
I like how the barbarian is wearing like swashbuckler boots.
Yeah. It
makes total sense.
It's strange. It kind of takes place on Earth. But yeah, it's a very strange. It's strange because of what we know about Conan and where it happens and all that. So, yeah.
I should read a Conax to Chimerical just to Conax to Chimerical.
Yeah.
Just to compare.
But I'm a big fan of Robert E. Howard's fiction, and these are rereads for me. So a lot of them are. But I read them when I was probably 20 years old, 21 years old, because I got them from the Bookworm. They got the paperbacks from the Bookworm.
Nice. In Missouri, right?
I'm in Missouri, a little town called Dexter. And I'll tell you the story about the Bookworm one day. I think that should be something we do, is to tell people a little about ourselves and how we came to reading. Let's do a video on that.
Let's do it. I like it.
But I'm loving this. And I'm also going to be reading a Fritz Leiber story called The Unholy Grail and The Stages of God by Ramsey Campbell.
The Unholy Grail. That is a great title.
Yeah. So it's The Stages of God by Ramsey Campbell. And they're both sword and sorcery stories. The Ramsey Campbell. Oh, and I'm also reading Rattle of Bones in this book. And I want to try to read as many stories in here. Try to read more stories in here than that. So, yeah, those are mine.
So I have 3 picked out. I'll probably add more before the week is out. When this week started, I told him, pick me a short story you'd like me to read. So
I picked it out of the Conan book.
I got a story out of this. Lovely cover. I'm going to be reading The Tower of the Elephant by Robert E. Howard.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to it. I've read Conan. I've read some of the Conan comics, and they're flipping fantastic.
We love the comic books.
I'm really looking forward to The Tower of the Elephant. It's got heffalumps in it. Just makes my day.
Even the new Conan comics are very good. I like the originals, but
you can tell.
I like the originals. You like what?
Heffalumps. See,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
one right there.
Yeah, we love elephants.
It's a pretty heffalump.
Yeah, we have a pretty good collection.
Right
is
there.
that plate back there? Oh, it's way up there.
Well, you can still see it.
Yeah.
It's got two heffalumps on there too.
Yeah, we were given that, and it's a beautiful art piece.
It sure is.
I love it.
The second book I'm going to read is called Occult Vengeance. It's the first book of the Soot Knight series by Kel Inksten. I don't know if that's his or her real name, but I really hope it is, because that's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
Kel Inksten.
It's probably not.
Yeah, probably not. That would break my feelings. It's actually an arc that I'm going to be reviewing, and it's totally sword and sorcery. So I was excited.
You haven't read it yet?
No.
Oh.
I'm excited.
You need to read that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I need to read it.
You got to finish.
Reviews due by the 18th.
You got to finish Tower of the Elephant first.
I'm reading that first.
Okay.
It's okay. Okay. And the last one I'm going to go for is called Shadow of the Fae by K.J. Baker, and it's a romance. So I had to
sure
fit
it would
one
count as sword
in
and sorcery.
It's they're fae.
It doesn't mean anything.
Don't make me beat you up. There's always sword and sorcery in the fae. You know there is. Don't pick on me. I had to fit at least one romance in there, just because it irritates you. Don't think it don't. I know it. You know it. They know it.
Yeah, it irritates me, but that's all right. It's your right to read what you want. And I don't have anything against romance. I don't. I just don't want to read romance during a fantasy readathon.
It's still fantasy.
Okay.
Totally fantasy.
All romance is fantasy. Think about it.
Well, all books are fantasy in that same vein.
No.
Except for, like, true crime and non-fiction. If it's fiction, it's fantasy. Just by definition.
Okay.
Don't make me hurt you, man.
Okay.
Now I messed up.
I think we're done. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is our well we did a video last Sunday for FFS with Steve. And we got another one coming up this Sunday with Steve. So it's at 6 p.m. Eastern time.
Because there wasn't enough snark.
No, there wasn't enough time. We had an hour. We'll have possibly a little more time this week.
Yep.
And so it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a blast. We love doing lives with Steve. We've done a couple before. One with Steve and one with Mark Richardson. That was a blast. We loved that video. It was when Steve was in Vermont.
Vermont, yeah.
Yeah. And that was about a year ago, I would say. Close to a year ago, probably. And, yeah, we'd like to do another one of those one day, kind of like that. But this week, we have Steve Donoghue, Sunday at 6 p.m. It's going to be a live video. So come join us. It'll be a blast.
So let us know what you're reading for Sword and Sorcery Week.
Yeah. And if you don't have this book, despite the cover, get it. It is great. I think it's $10 on Amazon, $12. It may even be less. I don't know. Something like that. And it is well worth it. So yeah, go get that.
Yep.
It's great.
But anyway,
it is very good.
We'll see you all this Sunday, and enjoy your sword and sorcery stories. We know you will. You know I'm going to. Even my romance ones. Buttonhead.